Alright, my name's Julius. I'm making a quick video, well, pretty quick video, I guess, on in response to this person that I've actually just seen over the last, well, I think it was yesterday actually. I found this video, but the reason why I'm critiquing it is because it's actually quite relevant, I feel, to the way um, uh, that we have this sort of divide at the moment between free speech, I guess. Not directly. This video is more about transgenderism, but I guess the free speech part of it that comes in is, this I guess this problem that we have in Australia at the moment of half the population believing that um, that we should have we should be able to express these sorts of ideas without being, I guess, pushed down, and the other half believing that we need to control control these sorts of ideas in transgenderism and I guess sexuality and things like that. They need to be pushed down back to where they've always been, which is more or less on the margins. So I personally don't really, I'm not an expert really inside of this argument. Know quite a bit of, I study psychology and I've studied these sorts of phenomena like transgenderism for quite some time. Not in any way where I could say that I'm completely knowledgeable on it, but I do understand the medical framework or the mental health framework that's used usually to treat people with gender dysphoria, which is actually the new name for gender identity disorder that came in quite some time ago. If you want to do a bit of research on that, I'd recommend maybe starting probably just on Google. There's a lot of information there. You can probably get into Google Scholar as well. Don't use this name, as I said. Oops, use gender the dysphoria. So we'll quickly just have a quick look at what that actually means, because that's an interesting, probably the most important point, I guess, to start off with, because this is the actual medical, I guess, the medical side of it. This is in the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. It's the way that we classify these sorts of feelings, and the repercussions of these feelings tend to be that a person chooses to transition. So gender dysphoria is the condition of feeling one's emotional and psychological identity as male or female to be opposite to one's biological sex. A uh, so whether or not that's a the means to for someone to change their gender or not is not, it's not definite, but a lot of statistics at the moment, a lot of research is showing. I'm not going to reference any of this, but a lot of the research that I've viewed uh, has shown that affirming one's gender identity, um, which is the common term now for someone's internal sense of gender, is probably the best way of trying to relieve or alleviate as best as possible this gender dysphoria. So we'll go back to the video now and we'll have a quick look at this because it's quite interesting. The guy itself, I'm not sure who he is. I've never seen this person before. I know his opinions. I know where they come from. A lot of people would call him a bigot, from definitely a liberal side. Definitely a liberal side would say that. But the right wing conservatives, religious organisations would probably agree with this guy's opinion, not because of the facts that he's putting forward, but just because of the fact that just because of the reason that I guess he is pretty well uneducated about what he's talking about. So we'll get on with it and we'll see how he goes. So basically, yeah, CBS, and there's a bit of a story on CBS about two transgender people that have just become parents. So let's have a listen.
All right, man. Peace. So CBS Morning News, they had a very interesting segment on a so-called transgender family. They touched on certain topics and issues. We're just going to go through this segment. Of course, I'm going to chime in.
In today's morning rounds, the physical and emotional challenges of a special pregnancy.
Look at this. Look at this shit, man. Oh, man. Look at this shit. Now, one of them is, of course, was a female becoming a transition, quote unquote, transitioning over to a male. That's the one to the right. I believe that the one on the left was a male becoming a female. I don't even know. They both just, they both shims. I'll just put it like that. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
A transgender man in Oregon gave birth to a baby boy. He shared his pregnancy on social media in the hopes of changing the stigma surrounding it.
You know, remember when you were little, and you go in your room and you dress up and.
So I guess this is a bit weird commenting on someone commenting, but I guess it's really where the core of this sort of issue sits. It's when people become opinionated without really understanding the context of someone else's life, and they make a lot of assumptions about things, and it's quite a shame to think that people are allowed to be this faceless, I guess. People are allowed nowadays to have these sorts of opinions where they sit behind a computer screen judging videos or photos or Facebook or anything like that. And I think it's a prominent thing at the moment. Absolutely, the level of bullying that's allowed to now be created on Facebook based off of people's opinions in private places. Um, but and I sort of understand that we are allowed to have free speech, but the interesting thing about this debate is that we have to draw a line somewhere. I feel because of the fact that this is a mental health issue, and if there are people that are working through their mental health care plans, that are getting to a point in their lives where they're happy, should they be then given a right to be protected in that happiness? And then is that protection then hindering other people's free speech? See, I feel like it's a completely separate argument for say against someone that's sort of talking about the word offend or something along those lines. If you can offend someone by saying you don't like their team or whatever. But when it comes to something like this, this is, I guess it's different. I can word it in any way I want, but I'd say that you're probably more attacking this person's foundations. It's very different to say, if you're having a disagreement with someone over what beer you like, or what books you read, or which leaders were the best. But in this sort of argument, I don't think this person has any sort of right to be doing this. It feels really horrible that we now have a sort of a platform for this sort of level of um, self-righteousness. Absolutely.
You come out and your parents would humor you. You know, you come out, you put a blanket over your shoulders and put a safety pin on in front and act like you was Superman or Batman or some shit, and they say, "Oh, it's Superman, watch out." That's what they're doing. That's what this society is doing, proverbially, with these transgenders. They're humoring them, as opposed to trying to really help them and assist them.
This person doesn't understand anything about transgenderism. He's never read a research article. I mean, that's just an assumption, but he's probably never read a research article on the topic. He's someone that's sitting at home watching TV and has decided to get up and say something to probably a group of people that are going to accept exactly what he's going to say, because of the fact that he can't be wrong in his argument. If people don't understand what's going on here, then of course they're going to think it's unnatural, or the usual things that come along with something that is out of place, in a I guess a society that has norms, and if this is breaking the norm, then that is fair enough. Yeah, we got a herd mentality. You need to try and prevent these differences from making too much of a change. Sort of a Darwin style analysis. But this is just this has just become uneducated. I don't think he'd know who Darwin was. I don't think he'd even care about who this person is that he's talking about. He doesn't understand the medical aspect. He doesn't understand the social consequences of his behaviors towards this person. Um, yeah, I find it shocking. But anyway, we'll continue.
with their mental issue. Oh yeah, you're a transitioning man. Yeah, no, no. You're a person with severe mental issues, most likely sexually molested as a child. You have sexual identity disorder. You have gender identity disorder. You hate yourself, and most
Sexual identity disorder is not a thing. But anyway, we'll continue.
likely, or more likely than not, you're going to commit suicide after the surgery, which is what a staggering amount of transgenders do. Right? But it's a liberal issue. People want to march for it. So
These statistics that he brings up, saying that that they are very likely to commit suicide, it's actually 10 times likely. It's not very likely, but it's roughly about 40% of the population. And I don't think he is really putting himself in a good position by referencing some form of made up opinionated statistic and then drawing straight back to a political argument. It seems very strange and disorientated. This whole argument is a bit hollow and superficial.
it is what it is.
An estimated 1.4 million adults in the U.S. identify as transgender, but the government has no documented numbers on transgender men who have given birth.
They have no documented numbers on transgender men that have given birth. What does that even mean? If you gave birth, you're not a man, you're a female. So why would they have documentation on some shit like that?
Maria Villarreal spoke to the family about their journey.
We've got strawberry, tomato.
Baby Leo's life story starts in a familiar place. Feeding, burping, and soothing the 2-week-old already looks like a synchronized routine for his parents, Tristan Reese and Biff Chaplow.
Look at this shit. Oh, man. This motherfucker look like, what's my man name from Ghostbusters? Rick Moranis.
Daddy's getting it. Daddy's getting it. They all have a match.
Now look at these 3 children. They're all going to be confused.
How is this not bigotry? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no references whatsoever. And people are trying to say, well, he's allowed to have his opinion. It's okay. He's a bit of free speech. It's okay. I understand a bit of free speech every now and again. If it sort of goes into that red area, then yeah, I guess it's okay to have that. Normal free speech is fine, but when you have that sort of that borderline offending or whatever that means, borderline sort of tearing someone apart out of the fact that you can, or you're just rude, or I don't know. I just feel a bit. It's calling this family confused seems a bit foreign to me, really. I mean, I don't know how he's come to that conclusion. Maybe I'm a bit more accepting. I've sort of grown up in and around people that are, a bit more accepting, I guess, of diversity. And I think these sorts of opinions, when they're talked about on like a larger scale. I mean, I'm not gonna go around. I'm not going to bash this guy, just about what he's saying, because I know it's just coming from a certain perspective. But there's a lot of people out there that don't have very good judgment in their sort of regional areas, and if they hear people talking about these issues in this way, then they're going to be very susceptible and receptive as well to these sorts of ideas. Calling someone confused, saying that they're not going to understand the world, and that the state needs to come in and force them to change. Pretty much what he's saying. It's that it's not healthy for these children. They need to be taken away. Not exactly, but that's sort of along the lines of where he's going. That's pretty radical. And unfortunately, that's sort of it. They have been radicalized. I mean, strangest thing about this is that this is probably one of the nicest things you're going to see on the television at the moment. A lovely, happy family. They've just just found out that they've got another baby on the way, and there's a whole bunch of people out there hating them because of the stereotype and the prejudice and the discrimination. The discrimination here is obvious. And it doesn't seem like there's any sort of voice in his mind that's going to try and reason with him about the way that he's talking. And I think it's a lot of this is to do with the way that I guess our families are brought up, and we're very protective of the things that the culture that we see around us. We know that there's a nuclear family that usually works in certain ways, and we need to have a mum and a dad, and that's understandable to have the mum with the long hair and stay at home and do the dishes, and then the dad that goes out and makes the money and comes home and drinks a beer. Those things are great, if you want to be a bit, if you have a bit of, if you like a bit of nostalgia. But apart from that, it's not reality anymore. I mean, I don't think it's ever been exactly that every time. I mean, how many times do you see nowadays that you see the single parents, or we have same-sex couples. This isn't new. This is something that's been going on for years. Since the 60s, this has sort of been tipping over, and now we're in 2017, and this guy here can't seem to understand. He doesn't want to progress. I don't even know if I want to listen to any more of that, to be honest. I've had a bit of a rant myself here today, and I think that's probably enough for now. If you want to have a look at the video, there's a title. But yeah, pretty horrible stuff. Just get back to, where are we? Yeah. So overall, I guess I know that there is a pretty intelligent argument somewhere beneath all of what he's saying, and there are sometimes things that we do need to consider, especially with identity politics, and especially when it comes to free speech, because that's really what we're talking about here, and it's sort of where the argument's really going in the public sphere at the moment. And I just hope that it can, it can resolve itself through the usual means, which would be debate. But if we keep having these sorts of, I guess this is a bit of, this is just bigotry, really. This is uneducated bigotry. I think the line where you can say it's bigotry is if you clearly understand that it is something very complex, yet you still decide to make false inferences about someone's lifestyle that can in no way be backed up by any evidence, apart from the 20 other people that he's probably friends with that also do these sorts of videos. I've got no idea. But I hope this guy figures himself out. I hope he doesn't get offended by what I'm saying. I just believe that he's not very well educated in this field. Maybe he is in other things, but certainly he needs to think for think of some maybe new ideas of videos in the future that maybe stray away from the more complex debates of our time. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. It wasn't that much fun for me. This just pissed me off, so I thought I'd make a video about it. Yeah, thank you.